Morning and welcome to today, the 17th of September's meeting for the Committee for the Economy, where we're joined online by Padraig Delargy and Diana Armstrong. Declarations of interest, members? Any? No.
Yes, Chair, my husband, business, he's done a course with AICC before.
No problem at all. Item 3 is Chairperson's business. I just wanted to raise one item, members, if the committee would be content not getting into the merits or demerits of the decision, but just as a committee to write to Mr. Kieran Kennedy to thank him for his service to the board of Invest NI over the past 5 years and the work that he has done to promote the economy, not just in the Northwest but across Northern Ireland. Are members content to do that?
Yeah, and just on that, I found out about his resignation via the Irish News yesterday. It was quite significant, and it would have been, I think, in the Minister's interest to inform this committee when something like that happens in such a public way. And I too would like to thank Kieran for his contribution, and particularly around regional balance. He's been a great advocate for the Northwest. My relationship with Kieran goes back many, many years because I recruited him to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce in Derry, and he just couldn't get his head around why he, from a Strabane, would need to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. But of course, it was on the basis of regional balance that he came along and was, kind of pushing the Northwest city region, and he has remained true to that. And it's really unfortunate that his frustration of the lack of advancement in regional balance has forced his resignation. But I do think it's a wake-up call, because regional balance is one of the key areas in the vision for our economy going forward. And if someone in the inside is identifying the lack of pace and calling out active discrimination in relation to the Northwest, I think that the Minister needs to sit up and listen. And as I said earlier on the radio, it's an arm's length body, Invest NI, but it's not a hands off, and it got into trouble because it was hands off from the department itself in relation to the Lions Review. And if that culture still exists within the organisation, it needs to be stamped out. I do recognise that there has been I suppose advancements in McGirr and all of that, and they are very, very welcome. But really, it is crumbs compared to what is going on in relation to the regional. We are not closing the productivity gaps. We are not closing the economic and activity gaps. And I'm looking at the local enterprise partnerships, and I don't see outputs. So we're 2 years into this. In terms of the new appointment in Invest, well, not 2 years, but 21 months. And so we do need to see progress, and we need to understand what is actually happening on the ground. So I would like to hear, just what the Minister's next steps are in relation to this. So I think we should write to the Minister as well and express our concerns about actually having to hear things like this via the Irish News.
Padraig?
Thanks, Chair. So look, just want to begin by thanking Kieran for, as Sinead said, his support for the Northwest, ultimately for the economy right across the North as well. And I think he's been a really key advocate for regional balance. I think it's really important to have local voices on those partnerships and on any boards. But what I would also suggest is that we write to Invest NI. I obviously have quite an overarching view of it from at this time, because again it's through media outlets and so on. But my understanding is that it's primarily around the office, the location of the office, and the opening of an office in the Northwest. So what I think would be really good in terms of clarifying that issue and clarifying how we move forward on that issue is actually if we can get clarification from Invest NI on exactly where that's at, timeline for that, cost involved in that, what the plans are, but also the strategic objective of that. And I think that's key. Where the office isn't just about a physical location. It's an outward projection of regional balance and of the importance of that. So I would like clarification from that. So what I would write or ask on top of that is that as a committee, we write to invest to seek clarification on that point.
Thank you, Patrick. Gary?
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to support that. I think that it is important, obviously, that we recognise the contribution of Kieran, but also of all of those Invest NI board members. It is important that the Invest NI board is reflective. Just last week we had over £115 million invested in our city. Invest NI are doing their best. And I think that we need to be careful just in terms of having a go at, and not suggest members in this committee are doing that, but I think we recognise the work and ensure that whatever positions are available, that they're filled quickly.
Diana?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And yes, I was quite shocked to see this resignation, but and others have made very good points. But I also would like to make the point. Recently, I've been looking at various board appointments that are in situ, and there is a distinct lack of representation from the Southwest. And in order to have regional balance, I think that voice has to be heard. So I would like that included, in some correspondence to the Minister and to Invest NI, that there is representation regionally for all of the boards that are contributing economically to growth, to productivity, and to deliver regional balance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Diana. So are members content, firstly, then, that we thank Mr Kennedy for his service? Secondly, we asked Invest NI for an update on the regional strategy that they have for all regions across Northern Ireland in relation to new offices and also their sub-regional economic plans. And we also contact the Minister to ask for an update on her work on that. Are members content with all of that, then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, members. Item 4 then, members, is draft minutes, which appear at page 7 of our pack, which are a account of our discussions, deliberations and decisions on the 10th of September. Members content that I sign those on behalf of the committee as a true and accurate reflection? Yep. Is that agreed? Thank you, members. Item 5 then, our draft minutes, or matters arising. Are there anything that members wish to raise at this stage which aren't covered later in the agenda? If not, then we can move to our first oral evidence session, which is on the AI Collaborative Centre and the Chief Scientific Officer, and I'm delighted to welcome them to committee here today. Professor Helen McCarthy, who is the Chief Scientific and Technology Officer to the Northern Ireland Executive, Mr David Crozier, CBE Director, Artificial Intelligence Collaboration Centre, Professor Michaela Black and Patrick McGirr. And you're delighted to have you all here, and I'm going to hand over to you to make an opening submission to the committee. Thank you very much indeed.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here today. It is actually a great honour to update the Economy Committee on some of the work that we've been doing. In terms of the work of the CSTA, my appointment was, I think, around the 4th of June last year. Over that period of time, we have established the Office of Science and Technology, which, as you know, is detailed in the programme for government. We have a series of integrated strategic work streams. Those work streams are very much underpinned by technology and AI, and it's a very integrated process. One of the work streams, as you know, is the establishment of the Office of AI and Digital. So with regard to that, we can talk about that in more detail. I'm sure you'll have questions, but we have engaged extensively across an external network to make sure that we represent the views of 95 stakeholders across multiple industries, academia and also government. We set up now an internal government AI network where essentially we have AI champions across each of the departments. The key phase of the next programme of work is now to develop the strategy, and we're working in close collaboration with AICC on that. Thank you.
Indeed.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Thank you for inviting us here today to brief you and hopefully enhance your understanding of AI and the associated economic benefits and challenges for Northern Ireland. AICC is a £16.3 million initiative led by Ulster University in partnership with Queen's University Belfast, announced in March 2024, supported by Invest Northern Ireland and Department for Economy. We aim to support regional growth through positioning Northern Ireland as a leader on the national and global AI stage and accelerating the adoption of AI across Northern Ireland industry. Our core mission is to drive responsible AI adoption here. I was appointed last August as Director, and prior to that I served as CEO of Software NI, the trade body for the tech sector here. Before that, I was part of the senior management team at the Centre for Secure Information Technologies at Queen's. Over the last year, we've worked at pace to ramp up our team, operations and programmes to deliver against the vision and ambitious targets set out in the Matrix report and substantial business case which led to our establishment. The Centre operates under robust governance structures, including an industry-led advisory board, which is chaired by Catherine Horkin, Executive Director and Head of AI at Fintru, based in the Northwest, a Technology and Skills Advisory Board with comprehensive industry representation, and we currently have a dedicated team of 19 specialists, growing to 25, covering AI, data science, ethics, training and professional support. This morning, Professor Michaela Black, AICC Principal Co-Investigator, and Patrick McGirr, Deputy Director for Business Engagement, have travelled down from our Northwest office to join me in the panel. We're also supported in the gallery by Donica Kirk and Tag Hickey from my team in York Street. 4 pillars of activity make up our work in supporting this region capitalise on the opportunities that AI presents. These are: 1, building skills capacity through 390 postgraduate scholarships to strengthen the pipeline of advanced builders and implementers of AI products and solutions. 3,000 plus professionals undertaking short courses to create a cadre of AI power users across all industries here. Our Transformer programme provides practical hands-on AI support for Indigenous SMEs across all industry sectors, and this will see us help 250 companies across Northern Ireland use AI to increase their productivity and take their first steps on the AI journey, with up to 20 days of support freely available from our centre. This will help them navigate the rapidly evolving technology and regulatory landscape in a responsible, ethical, independent and vendor agnostic way. These engagements are regionally balanced. SMEs based in Belfast and Derry currently make up 49% of those who have participated to date. The remainder are from other parts of Northern Ireland. In terms of enhancing the AI ecosystem, we're enabling and supporting a range of events and activities where industry representatives can come together, learn and exchange best practice at a point they are comfortable with, close to them regionally. For example, yesterday we worked together with the Mid-Ulster Labour Market Partnership on bringing our AI Acceleration Tour workshop series to the Junction in Dungannon, with 40 industry representatives attending that. 59% of AICC events to date have been based outside of Belfast. In terms of national and international events, we're showcasing the expertise here and building global networks. Recent activities include supporting Invest Northern Ireland's trade and investment teams in Dublin and New York. Finally then, maximising the drawdown of AI-related research and innovation funding to the region. That's currently nascent in our work programme, but already that's included a new research project with a large multinational advanced manufacturing company here in explainable and interpretable AI. We're also collaborating with a local firm to secure, and we've delivered actually the new UK artificial intelligence sector study for DCIT, so we're already influencing the national policy conversation around AI as well as regionally here. Our progress is further outlined in a written evidence submission, and my team are finalising our annual report to be published in the days ahead. But our recent capability census report highlights that many firms already service global AI delivery operations from here. Technology giants whose names are synonymous with AI, including Microsoft, Nvidia and AMD, have a footprint here in the region. Indigenous firms such as Analytics Engines, Enzi, KPath are growing dedicated AI activities here as well. When appointed, I believed AICC to be one of the most concentrated government-backed investments in AI skills capacity and SME capability in the UK, if not Western Europe. Having met with numerous industry leaders and potential inward investors over the last year, I still believe that to be true, and they have commended our government for its foresight in investing in this intervention. We should all take pride in that. When the UK AI Opportunities Action Plan was published in January this year, I reviewed it and determined that we, AICC, were already delivering or ramping up delivery of many of the recommendations it contained. We have since shared our experience with DCIT officials on what has worked here in terms of supporting SMEs, and that is informing their approach in GB. My team and I look forward to exploring the economic opportunities AI presents to the region with you throughout this session and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, David, for that. Any of the other colleagues, or are we happy to open up questions at this stage? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Breaking with tradition, I'm going to bring Kate Nichol in first, who has foregone some of her maternity leave to be here. Kate's been an avid champion of this, so I'm going to hand over the first session to
Thank you, Chair, and also if the baby starts to cry, then it means I've got my questions in, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much, and I've met with you before, and I think that the AICC is doing really amazing work in terms of bringing academia and industry and government together, and really great to hear that you're already influencing the national strategy. David, when we met, you talked about how we're a world leader in cyber, we're a world leader in medical software, and when you meet with Microsoft and Kainos and all these organizations that are doing really amazing work, they say we're ready for that, and that Northern Ireland is ready to be a world leader in AI. What do we need to do from the Assembly to really have us ready for that? I'm conscious that we do really well in lots of things, but we also, no one on this committee are quite good at capitalising on things that people are afraid of. Mm-hmm. And so for business to be able to really lead, for us to really lead on this, what more do we need to be doing as an Assembly?
Mm-hmm. I think as an Assembly, a lot is being done already. Obviously, we're getting significant government support, which we are thankful for. That is generating a really large talent pipeline, particularly those advanced postgraduate skills. We've seen, the matriculation numbers that we had last year. The application for those scholarships this year are heavily oversubscribed, right? So we have a population here who see AI as an opportunity, right? And also we see industry, existing industry, I must say, existing investments here, and I speak to a lot of the foreign direct investment companies as well as the indigenous firms. They wish to see a strong talent pipeline, and they think that these sorts of programs are ones that they can either support their indigenous efforts here or go back to headquarters, whether that's in Silicon Valley or wherever, and highlight that strong talent pipeline. So if companies are putting an investment in here, they know there's talent here now, tomorrow, and long into the future. So I think we could probably support more of that. That's not to say the support that we have isn't welcome, but we could always do more. What we know, I guess, about AI and related disciplines like machine learning and data science is, yes, those tools, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, make certain, augment roles and make some of those, make some of the more mundane tasks easy, right? But in terms of building AI solutions, right, and applying those to large enterprises, large public sector organizations, we need people with higher skills and more advanced skills, in terms of to really compete on the global stage. So look, we do get significant support. We would always ask for more support in that area, right? I don't think, anybody in my position wouldn't ask for more support. We see the demand for the skills there, particularly in AI, machine learning and data science, and that's definitely somewhere where we can continue to grow on the really solid foundation we have around enterprise technology here in the region, which we are world renowned for.
It's really useful, and it's funny how so many of our conversations here come back to skills in this committee. Helen, the culture, research, development and innovation in the executive, you've really emphasised that being important. Mm-hmm. How important is it particularly to AI in this work?
It's absolutely critical. We've been on a massive drive to try to embed research and innovation across each of the government departments. We've put a science champion, or the government departments have given us a science champion very nicely, we'll put it that way. We have our NICEDAN quarterly meeting, and you may say, well, how does that relate to AI? This relates to AI because I've asked each of the government departments to give me areas of research interest. So these are projects that they know they need to work on. They're areas that they want to collaborate with academia, with industry or whatever. The Nurse Review basically said that we needed to publish, government departments need to publish ARIs, and England have been doing it since 2017. None of the devolved regions have been doing it, so we are actually, since I've come into post, we've managed to get these ARI projects. We've now got 80 projects across government departments. 60 of those have an AI component to it. So culturally, this tells me that the government departments are ready for this. They're ready for the change. Now, I think the other big cultural piece, which, you know, a lot of people are really focused on outcomes, and we are a private sector driven SME economy. We have to be really careful that we make sure we put public sector guardrails around the AI that we do. And the other big thing, the other big cultural piece that we've worked on is data. So Department of Finance and the Minister there has been absolutely brilliant in the support of this. The big thing with the data is across government, all the data is stored in Content Manager. None of our AI tools can access Content Manager. So we did a session with the ministers round the table to basically explain all of this, and they understand now that culturally we need to shift our data to a place that it is accessible. Now, there's no point doing, you know, one department at a time in this. We need to do this as a holistic. This is long-term futuristic planning is what we're talking about, not a short-term fix. So we're doing a lot in culture. It's all soft power. It's all trying to bring people with us. And I know that Philip Wheels in NISRA is leading on the data strategy. I know that economy are going to be leading on the digital strategy. We're leading on an AI strategy. And it's all docked into the research and innovation strategy, which we've just drafted as well. So we're trying to do this in a very collaborative, joined-up way. So culture's important.
Massively. I chair the all-party group on policy and public data, and we discussed that before. And we're so data-rich in Northern Ireland, but it's not joined up. And for policy interventions to be able to access all of that, and with AI, I mean, waiting lists, all these things could be. We could have policy solutions to everything now, as opposed to looking 5-10 years. So it's really exciting work that you're doing, and really grateful for you coming here, but also for answering my many questions that I sent you. And thank you, Chair.
No, not at all. Thank you very much, and thank you for your responses. Professor McCarthy, just in relation to the work of the Department for the Economy that they're doing with you, how many of those 80 projects that you had just outlined there are you aware are within the Department for the Economy?
I think we're in single digits in those projects, and I think that's fairly normal across each of the departments. But there's very much a drive for innovation, and actually they've actually done quite a lot of round tables with me, with their senior management teams, certainly on the skills side and the innovation side. And then David and I spent an afternoon discussing exactly what we've said about, you know, the 5-point plan that we need to put in place across government with the senior management team as a whole in an afternoon. So, you know, it might sound, I understand that everybody wants this high level of one government department's data talking to the others. We have to get all the government departments to have cloud-based structure, first of all, that can talk across. We also have really got to amend the legal framework so that we can share data appropriately. And also, if we wanted to use data for research purposes, which is really important as well, we have to be able to, you know, produce synthetic data that is essentially blinded that we can use, and that's also critical as well. Department for Economy, I would say, have been huge advocates and support of this. They can see what needs to be done. The research and innovation draft strategy as well, we've shared it with them for complete feedback on all the points across skills, across innovation, and how do we drive this together going forward. So they have a science champion on the NISTAN group, and they have an AI champion as well. So they've been fully engaged in it.
And in terms of those individuals that are the science champion and the AI champion within the department, do they have a background in that work, or are they new?
Yeah, that's what they're working in. Now, you ask about, you know, a full background in AI and
coding.
No,
sure.
I don't think so, but they're aware from being a policy lever. But I do think, even whenever we're sort of thinking about policies, I even think the way we do policies has to change. We have to pull in real-time data so that we can see whether our policies are working or not. There's no point figuring that out at the end, and we've got the opportunity to do this now. So we're trying to build for the future, and it is a big cultural shift, which,
Never easy in this place.
If I could just add a little bit more to that, Chair, as Helen said, my team and I had met with the Economy Board alongside Helen, and we'd given them the benefit of our experience of working with many companies over the last year or so. I think there's an opportunity as well in terms of alongside Helen's work for the likes of innovation sandboxes in the different departments where they can kind of experiment, where they can de-risk some AI projects and experiments. I think there needs to be a kind of reduction in the kind of risk aversion as well in terms of trying some of these tools. We know from some of the public data from various companies that X% of projects do fail on AI. The technologies are evolving rapidly. That doesn't mean that departments shouldn't do those with appropriate guardrails. You talked about responsible approach to AI adoption. In terms of the projects that we do with industry, we've built out a tool we call CAGE, the Core Assessment of Governance and Ethics, that we put every project through before we write a line of code, before we train a model, to make sure that those projects are taking account of trustworthiness, ethics, regulations, sustainability, both in terms of net zero type sustainability, but also financial sustainability. These technologies come with a cost, so where companies in our kind of world, in terms of the public sector, to make sure that where they're investing in these technologies, that they're aware of the costs and that they can sustain that investment on a long-term basis. That tool has proved to be hugely successful with the companies we're working with. We're currently building that onto our website in terms of a responsible AI hub, where we'll make that available generally. And we spoke to Helen about how they might adopt that in the public sector. So there are spillover effects and from our investment that will help the public sector as well.
We're working together on the latest technologies and making sure in my external reference group that tools like this, how could we adapt them so that we can give the departments guidance and help in deciding whether they should proceed with their AI project or not.
And in terms of the legal framework then that may be required for government departments to use these programs but also share data across, have you any concern that, given how sometimes slow updating legal frameworks will be, or legislative process through the Assembly, that we're going to fall behind because our legal frameworks aren't there? And are you aware that they have been put in place, drafted, ready to go?
So I'm aware that NISRA are working on those legal frameworks now, and I do know that will probably be slightly delayed in where we need to get to, but there's a lot of efficiencies that we can put in place right now. For example, Department for Economy are starting, and they've started a Microsoft Copilot trial. Now, one of the things, there's a great opportunity. You can see there's a call out at the moment for EO2s. There's a great opportunity to say at EO2 level, you should be using Microsoft Copilot for A, B, C, D, and we could do this across all the levels. The other big thing is the consultation tool. You think about how much money we spend on a consultation manually and how much time it takes. So Department of Finance are writing code at the moment so that we can start to have our own tool. And we see that those tools that can be used across all departments, sort of being involved in the Office of AI and Digital, and us helping departments and giving them guidance and using ethical tools and making sure we're doing this responsibly. We don't want to have any unethical projects whatsoever, and that's why I've also set up the Women in STEAM event, where that's very important to me, because we need to put people at the centre of what we do. So in our AI strategy, we've added an extra pillar on citizens based on the wonderful advice of Michaela, that the importance of citizens and making sure that they're at the centre of everything we do. So people may use AI, but it will never replace human decision making. And I think as a public sector, we have to really subscribe to that.
And I totally agree. If we're bringing AI into the public venue, we've seen, particularly in Scotland and other nations, if the citizens are not educated at that very low level, and I mean keeping our young people safe in primary schools and secondary schools, but also just having that literacy. What does the terms in AI mean? A lot of our public do not understand, and what that creeps in is this mistrust. So they automatically don't trust what the government are doing. So we need to be doing the citizenship at the same time that we're doing the public sector, so that same language has been used and that they can see the benefits.
I'm keen just to explore that point in terms of particularly with the work that you're doing with the Department for Education, because I think that's key, that's actually embedded within the curriculum. If I wrap average door in my constituency of North Belfast and talk to them about AI development, they're more interested in how they're going to pay their bills at the end of the week, that their job's secure, and those issues. If I talk to them about AI, so how do we ensure that from a very young age, particularly through the education curriculum, that's embedded into our young people? Because I always find the best way to educate adults is having children around the table talking about it, and once they're talking about it, then you don't want to be seen that young people know more than you do. So I was just wondering what collaboration you've done with the Department for Education on that.
I'll come in on the department level, and obviously Michaela, you have a lot of experience with school children. I have been down with the Department for Education, their senior management team, several times.
You didn't use AI to write speeches yesterday, did you?
Well, it's funny, but the funny thing is, on writing of speeches using AI, that's okay as long as you put a human intervention on it. You know, that's the key thing, that you check that what's there is actually referenced and it's okay. And this idea that, you know, something is right or something is wrong, we need to help, we need to provide a framework for yourselves to work around and to make sure that you're safe in what you do. But with the Department for Education, it's not just about AI, it's about the data. The data is the fuel for AI. So they need access to the real-time data, and that's really important for them to help make their decisions. And we had a long discussion about data and how they need data to inform their policies and all the rest of it. And I took them through what is AI, the origins of AI, how it can be either neural or symbolic, but it's really important that we put the rules around everything, and that, you know, even if you started to use Copilot, I mean, we do need to have proper Copilot training across the civil service, and that's one of my big things, is that this has been, you know, rolled out with, you know, and people don't understand how they use it. We have to get that fixed. So I spent a lot of time with the head of HR as well, saying, you know, look, we've got to start to do this, and they're in complete agreement and they're working on all of that. So the Department for Education are very keen. They have an AI champion around the table as well. They would probably say that they're on a learning curve with all of this, but I actually think that's really good, because I would rather, so for example, I said, me personally, I'm not up to speed on all the ethics of AI, but I know who is, so I go and talk to the expert and I get them to help me do whatever needs to be done. That's how we've done this. We've done this as a co-creation, and the strategy as well, the different headings in the strategy, I've got external contributors to help me. What do we need to cover off? What do we need to make sure the public sector and the future of our children is where we need it to be? So I think the data play is not separate from the AI play in the Department for Education in particular.
And just a final question for me is in relation to the wider regulatory environment of which Northern Ireland is operating in. So reading some of your paper, you seem to suggest that Northern Ireland's in a good place because it could be seen to have a competitive advantage by operating both within the wider European regulatory environment, but also the UK. So I'm just keen to, if we could tease that point out.
So if we look at the companies that we are working with, 83% of those SMEs that we work with already, they aim to deliver AI supported services in Northern Ireland and other jurisdictions. So we help them navigate the regulatory frameworks that are there in place. We don't have a view on what those are. We help the companies navigate those in the kind of most agile way, right? What we know from industry is where typically where you meet multiple different regulatory environments, that opens up multiple commercial opportunities in different countries. So we help the companies, they're coming to us asking us to help them navigate those and make sure that their solutions are compliant, and we do that with them. So we guide them through those different regulatory landscapes, and we focus on kind of practical, proportionate actions that they can take to make sure that they adhere to whatever the regulations are on any given day.
You don't have a view in terms of whether
We don't have a view.
Okay.
We help them navigate
Sure.
whatever the regulatory framework is at any given time. I think, I think the strongest demand, I guess, from industry is just really for clarity around regulations, and they will then operate within those. We will continue to give them guidance, but I guess it's a political decision in regards to what regulations apply here.
A very good political answer. Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you all for coming. Very, very interesting as always. I suppose a few questions from me. Just to go back to the cultural point. So I still think that for many people there is still a mistrust out there, certainly an uncertainty. What is this? What will this mean for me and my family? But then, of course, there are those who almost use AI as a criticism, as we've seen in the chamber yesterday with the minister's statement around, did you use AI almost as if it's like a criticism? And I think that's the challenge because, from my point of view, when I was at university, there was the issue of, when people were doing their coursework, plagiarism. So it was put through a device and it was, you copied that from somewhere else. Well, AA is not, from my understanding, is nothing like that because ultimately this is AA's stuff that has been put onto the system. It's gathered and researched, but as you say, it's about then that sort of human check, if you like, making sure that the information is correct. There's an onus on us to have our input, etc. So I wanted to just bottom out in terms of that cultural piece. From what I see, the private sector seems to be moving obviously much faster than the public sector. And that is going to be a challenge because when I read your report, I think it was page 8, or it was in relation to the productivity gap and the pace across the UK. Northern Ireland, we have a much bigger public sector, so it is going to be important for us, for the public sector to pick up pace. So just your thoughts on that cultural piece and how we address that sort of issue of, AA is just it's another tool, a very big one, but it shouldn't, be something that's used as a criticism either.
I think it's in communication, and I think it's in being completely transparent about what's happening and what you're working on, and what the end vision of this is. As I said quite frequently, 40 years ago we didn't know what were the rules and the protocols around email, and we've all managed to get up to speed with that. I think that we need to start thinking about some of the AI tools, that we're bringing the tools in to basically help reduce duplication and wastage. And I think that's really important because, the cultural piece, you're right, across the universities, they're going to have to also look at having the correct tools in place to support their students, to support the researchers, etc. as well. There isn't a sector that isn't going to be affected by this, and the public sector more generally, being more slightly conservative, rightly so, because you're dealing with people's lives, it's going to take a longer period of time. But I think we've got to start at the base level. We've got to start at helping with efficiencies. I mean, imagine if you could record your minutes and you would have those minutes just there. That would save so much time. But somebody will always check them and sign them off. And I know that seems very low level, but if you've got everybody who's sitting around a committee room or a table taking those minutes and doing it that way, what does that then save in terms of time and resource? So you have to make it tangible for people out in society who don't understand what this means. I think this is how we position. This is how we've tried to position it. This is how the Office of AI will try and position it. I mean, I know that there's various things ongoing. If we look at Department of Justice, for example, they have a management dashboard with AI capabilities, and that means that they basically can get the real-time data on paramilitarism and organised crime. That's really important for them. That then helps. So if you can imagine all of your departments could have those dashboards with the data is really powerful. And that feeds in to what really the Office of Science and Technology is about, which is about using evidence to make decisions, which I think is the most important thing. So we need help with the culture. All of the ministers have been really supportive when we took them through all the steps, and indeed I had a session with yourself, Kate, and we went through all the steps. And I think we all need to understand that we're on a journey, but we've got to try and do it together. And if you've got an issue or concern, raise it, let's talk about it and get to the other side.
Well, that's interesting. Even in terms of this building, our IS office had a session with MLAs yesterday on the issue of AI. The fact that our devices are built in with software, how to use it sensibly in a way that's productive, and I suppose some people see it as well. Some people are using it for laziness, and that's not the case, because actually it's about productivity. It's about the things that we can do quicker, more efficiently, without having to, as I say, take the time and do sort of the traditional methods. I suppose a final point, because everybody's going to be very interested in this. In terms of the short-term economic impacts, in your written submission you talked about, obviously they were already visible in some sectors, one of them being software development, and we can see how quick AI can generate code and all of that sort of stuff. What other particular sectors are feeling an impact at this minute in time? And I suppose how will then that sort of correct itself? So obviously you mentioned software development. What other sectors are getting a bit of an impact at the moment on this issue?
So I think it's particularly hard to pin impacts on AI itself. There are multiple issues at the moment in terms of geopolitical issues, in terms of financial issues, and AI is one part of that. We have drawn out the software sector, because that's a sector I'm previously close to, we are close to, and we are already working. For example, my team, our Technology Skills and Advisory Board, are having a joint workshop with the Computing Employers Advisory Board on the 29th to meet with industry to look at how do we take account of the impact. And I think it is a short-term impact, I might add. Other industries may see impact, particularly, like professional services around research and analysis work, but we've seen jobs announcements from those big professional services firms where they're adding additional data science roles, data analytics roles. So there may be short-term impacts on one part of the business, but they're growing other parts of the business to take account of the opportunities that AI presents. I think I'll get back to the software issue in particular. The universities, both universities, have seen a short-term impact on the appointment of internships and placement students, for example. There may be some short-term impact on graduate placements, so there may be a place for the department to have a short-term intervention there to pick up, maybe a cohort or two of students that aren't going into traditional junior software engineering roles. That might be an opportunity for the public sector, for example, to offer internships to pick up some of those roles and to make sure that those people are getting their experience and expertise developed. I don't know if you want to say something.
I think I would definitely flag the life and health sciences sector and the innovation-driven enterprises. So these are companies of high net value, or they're based on IP. So as you know, if a company decides to take a product through to development, even in the med tech world and some of the advanced manufacturing, that you get a little surge and then there's a dip for a long period of time, and we call it the valley of death, and then it kind of goes up, and that lasts for a very long time. When you use AI on some of your processes in drug development or in making a medical device, that valley of death is significantly shortened. So that means then that you can take your product to where you need it to be in a much shorter space of time. So I think there's opportunities in the med tech industry, certainly in life and health sciences, and actually I had a discussion yesterday about there's opportunities in energy as well.
I think one further thing I'd add, my team were in Mid-Ulster yesterday in Dungannon. There were 40 company representatives there. They find it a tight labour market, and they're looking forward to using AI to augment and upskill their existing workforce where they're maybe struggling to attract additional staff members. So already those companies are looking at opportunities to add additional value to the staff that they already have, to retain staff that they have, and to increase productivity from the staff that they have there. So, I think the jobs figures yesterday show, Northern Ireland is still in a fairly good state around employment, and effectively I think these tools are particularly useful at augmenting existing human resource and, as you say, making, individual roles more productive.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
David?
Chair kind of touched on this. A couple of things I want to look at, but Northern Ireland's position. So we're being compliant with EU regulations. We're being compliant with UK. How do we maximise that to our advantage? How do we maximise the ability to use both the compliancy bit of EU and UK? How do we maximise that to grow this here?
I think there's opportunities there around particularly RegTech, for example, where potentially some of these differing regimes, and it's not just UK versus EU, you have multiple different regulatory regimes across the US, for example, state by state. That presents an opportunity for particularly RegTech firms here in the region to build solutions that help companies navigate those particular challenges. There's always an opportunity in different regimes to take advantage of that and build solutions.
I think recently we had the CSA over from the Department of Business and Trade, and it was specifically to understand what was our AI and our innovation and how did we feed into the UK's industrial strategy. And we went through a number of our different things. Obviously, Studio Ulster is a tremendous asset and underpinned by AI, digital innovations and the like. But she was really impressed with the fact that we have AICC, apologies David, who are basically out there doing the baseline work with all of our SMEs to get them on board. But then you've got Momentum 1.0, which takes your AI to the next stage. Then you've got the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Centre that will take your manufacturing. She could not believe how joined up we were and how we feed into the UK industrial strategy. Now, that is really good. What we need to work on, we need to communicate this, we need to bring this together and show that even though the AI playbook has come out, even though ROI have refreshed their AI legislation, etc., we need to basically communicate that we're already doing many of these things together. And in fact, whenever we had the British Irish conference there in June, it really did come across that we were incredibly joined up. We're really poor at communication, and we need to improve upon that. That would be my big thing that I would say.
Is that then the reason, through the paper she said about we're 1% of the UK, 1% of the UK, was it, or the GVA, was based in Northern Ireland? Why is, if Northern Ireland's 3%, say, of the UK as a population, why are we only at 1%?
Yeah, you go first and I'll...
Yeah, so that figure's taken from our report, and it tallies with the figure that was in the national UK study that was published on the 3rd of September. I think what's skewing that figure a little bit are big investments in companies like Google DeepMind and a lot of those really, really large investments that are concentrated around London and the southeast. If I look at my previous role, in terms of cybersecurity, we would have had about 3 to 4%. Here in the region, versus probably 2%, if it was kind of by population. I think there's an opportunity there, really to build on. It's a small but growing base and attract more of that, the UK funding in. If you look at the Key Action 5 that we're funded to do, we have a specific task around attracting more of the research and innovation funding into the region, specifically around AI technologies. And I think that will move the needle on that. I think if you look at some of the companies coming through that are building, we would see them as kind of more advanced companies, and they're not building out large language models. They're building out kind of niche language models or niche AI models around specific use cases. I think that's where we can be particularly strong, and both universities are carrying out a lot of activity in that space. I think the startup space is growing, where we have people coming from large FDI companies. They're working with international customers. I think there's huge potential there, but we need to help those companies attract more investment into the region, and I think we're starting to do that, but we're starting from a low base in AI.
So some of the work that we've been doing with Department for Economy, and they've been really good at convening this, we're now convening the groups with all the stakeholders, and when I mean stakeholders, I mean it's important to have your sectoral leads and your universities round the table as well. So when there's an opportunity for funding, and you're right, we don't draw down, we need to quadruple our research income into the country as a whole from where we are. We are probably where Ireland was in the year 2000 in terms of how much we spend across government in R&D, and we need to really increase that as well. So we've got the business R&D needs to go up, the government, and also the higher education one. So what we're trying to do this in a coordinated way, where we look at the whole region as a whole and say, what do we not have? And what do we need? And how can we join forces together? And because the disciplines are now interwoven across each other, you have to have a sectoral lead from life and health sciences sitting around the table from somebody from software and manufacturing, because AI is part of every discipline that you do, as is data and digital. Manufacturing, productivity, it's all linked in together across disciplines. So that's a long way of saying we have the right people around the table, and we've had a lot of discussions with Department for Economy about making sure that we work together as a team to figure out what are the priorities that the country needs, and we go after those priorities in a really systematic way. And I think it's starting to bear fruit, but it's a new way of working.
So refreshing an answer, and what's actually happening on the ground of what's it's been able to scale what is happening there. Just finally for me, just that SME bit, the small business part, is how do we make sure that the smaller companies, you've got the big companies, you've talked about several of them, but have the ability and the finance, if you like, and the capability of people to be able to put the resource to that. How do we make sure our small businesses are able also to that we don't deliver?
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So docked into this is the draft research and innovation strategy, where we call out specifically really tiny businesses and the need to have some 100% funding opportunities for them to see if their product works. There was a brilliant scheme in Enterprise Ireland which did that, and it does it really well, and we need to be looking to do that as well, and I think that's really important.
Would that be through Invest, or would that fund? Is that
I don't know the answer to that question.
No,
These are just recommendations that we're putting forward.
Yeah.
I would also say that the draft strategy, we have called it Integrate to Innovate, because we have got all the components here. We just need to work together. Sorry, Patrick, I've stolen your thunder there.
Okay, I'll build on your points. So just on the SME point, you're probably right about the large businesses. They probably have the financial capital to build these products themselves.
Yeah.
But the smalls and micros, so we're funded to work with SMEs. That's everything from your one-person SME up to your sub 249, and we work with across all sectors as well. So we get businesses that are in manufacturing, health and life sciences, that are in agri-tech. So we find that some of the businesses are using our team of AI engineers to actually build out the POC, to then go for investment, to then scale and grow. So it's refreshing to see that the skills in our team, with what is a short engagement of 20 days, can build something tangible that they can go to investment and say, here we go. Now, I guess in parallel to that, there are schemes like DTFF, Digital Transformation Flexible Fund, that supports the smalls and micros across a few different areas of support. But I guess broadly, it's a fantastic program, that Transformer program, and it's really accessible. We've got feedback commended feedback from some businesses about how easy it is to engage with us. We have a little form you fill in online, it comes to my inbox. We set up the calls, we do the technical calls, then the team start work. So it's a really good program that way. I don't know if you want to add to that, David.
I think previously in my role at whenever I was at CSIP, we would have worked with a lot of research and development intensive companies, and we know Northern Ireland's still particularly poor in R&D. What we're seeing with these companies that we're working with through the Transformer programme is the vast majority of them have never really engaged in heavy duty R&D. We're kind of the first step on the ladder for that. We're exposing them to new concepts that are coming through from research, that are coming through from our industry experience, and most of my team I've hired from industry, actually. Patrick, previously at CDE and Dyson, Donica acts, Fidelity Investments, TAG acts, Concilio and Unilever. So we're bringing that knowledge and expertise. We're maturing the companies and their ability to engage in higher level R&D related projects. We then, if you look at now, our AICC is not a city deal funded project, although we have a footprint across the region. We work very closely with Momentum 10, with AMAC, with Cadric and Carl up in the northwest to really build a pipeline of R&D, potential R&D companies. Some of those, because we work across multiple different industries, we now have the potential as we mature and we kind of deliver those initial short-term engagements. We have the potential to kind of cluster some of those companies together, whether they're in kind of manufacturing or life and health sciences, where then we can group them together and potentially go for those larger scale, national funded programs, or to actually underpin, and build on the investments into the city deal, whether they are in AMAC or iReach or Momentum or Cadric up in the northwest. And that's exposing a larger number of SMEs, giving them line of sight and the benefit from those investments. And we think as well, as Patrick says, there are a number of the companies that we're working with, they're taking our proof of concept, and we don't deliver production systems and solutions at the moment, but they're taking those proofs of concept, those proofs of value, they're working with us to build their pitches to investors. And there are 2 that are on my desk at the moment that they're going out for investment. We've kind of de-risked some of their approach, and they can go to the investors and go, look, we've worked with AICC, we've worked with their experts. Here's a working prototype. Invest in that rather than slideware or just a kind of a business case. So look, we're at the start of that journey, but we are starting to see positive results.
I would say strategically then that gives us an opportunity then to look and redefine and reimagine our clusters across the whole region. And on the basis of redefining those clusters, then we make sure that we showcase those. So one of the initiatives that we're trying to build in the Office of Science and Technology is the NI Science website showcase collaboration tool to show the rest of the world that Northern Ireland should be known for its science and its innovation, as well as all the other great things that it has. So we're trying to dovetail strategically with the initiatives that are going on.
Just to follow on to that, I think one of the blockages that we had for SMEs for a number of years is we never had a front door. None of the institutions had an open door where the SMEs felt comfortable. Well, I need to talk to somebody, but I don't want an academic and I don't want a researcher. The AICC has transformed that whole landscape across Northern Ireland. Yeah. They're now knocking on the doors, knocking the door down. We actually probably need more doors and more people. Yeah. But that transition from the SMEs is great to see. Yeah. The big, larger companies were always in our door, but those SMEs never seen. That front door is a totally new thing for them.
I think if I follow that one up, the fact that we're kind of semi-autonomous in terms of how we present out to the industry. We have a remit, my team has a remit to go into any part of either university, and we work closely with both Ulster and Queen's. We can go into any part of either university that's carrying out activity in machine learning, AI, data science, whether that's in the schools of computing, both School of Computing here in Belfast, SCIS up in the northwest, or ECCS in Queen's, also in the School of Engineering, Built Environment, Life and Health Sciences. We can help open those doors and we can make those connections to say, right, well, we see your challenge here. We build out a proof of value, and we can draw on the academic expertise. We can make the connections out into industry as well. So this isn't just about building a pipeline for academics around research. In terms of our handover, and Patrick and the team do this very well. The next steps are as important in terms of sustaining that investment as much as the hands-on project. There are a number of different outcomes. One of those, we've taken the analysis that we did on the sector. We looked at who locally is providing AI solutions and services. So one of the next steps is we provide them with a list of companies who are providing those services. So we're making a market for those Indigenous software and technology firms. We've seen that. The Data Lab in Scotland, who are a number of years ahead of us, they've shown that very strongly, that they've made a market for the Indigenous tech sector as well through that, the kind of giving the SMEs a step, the first step on the ladder, helping them understand what their data challenges are, what is appropriate for using AI and machine learning, de-risking it, and then they go, right, this is where we need to invest money. We need a company to do X, we need a company to do Y, and we're starting to really see that we are making a market for the local tech sector, as well as supporting a lot of companies de-risk their first steps on the AI journey.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you,
Diana.
Yes, good morning to the panel, and thank you for a fascinating presentation or discussion. I'm sorry, I do have to leave in a few minutes, and I send my apologies. And what I wanted to ask is actually about functionality. It's really the capacity, we're building the capacity to produce more AI-driven research. Just the reassurance of the capacity of our data center to power that, the impact on the energy grid. Is there something that we need to be looking at there in terms of the energy consumption and storage, the storage centers for data?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. You're absolutely right. So when we're looking at where we are at public sector wise and data, we've agreed in the initial steps that we're going for a cloud-based approach. Northern Ireland high performance computing is on the map at the moment across the UK, and it's one of the sites that's been identified to essentially be upgraded along the way. The Kelvin 2 is currently located in Belfast, but Michaela, you know the details of the new one that they're talking about.
There's a new Atlantic hub coming to the northwest, fueled, funded by an American background, and it's going to be 100% renewable. And the idea is that will now be open from Q1 of 2026. So that's bringing with it that understanding and also a skill set to let people know how much is it going to cost them. Have we the capacity to do it? But also then that future proofing of can we keep this up? And when we bring that inward investment, can we sustain it? So we're already looking at the skill sets around data centres. What does that need? How do we within the universities address that and enable that data centre to be sustained and moving forward, grow with the capacity that we need it to do? But it's fully renewable in its sense, and it also, because it's on the port in the northwest, it opens up connections much better through the sea and the landscape there. So that'll give a lot more inward investment coming that way to tie in as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The other one area I wanted to just touch on, it's been touched on, regulatory frameworks, AI safety features that could create killer codes to hack into systems, and how do you set the parameters to deter that?
I guess I'll take that one first. As I mentioned earlier, for our Transformer Programme projects, we carry out a core assessment of governance and ethics for all the projects we do. We look at different high-risk applications of the technology. We look at the users, whether that's potentially going to get technology into the hands of vulnerable users. Not in this kind of attack type scenario, but we have red flagged 2 projects to date. One of those we haven't moved forward with because the company felt that they didn't kind of align with our kind of assessment of the project. Now, that's not in the space you're talking about. It was in the healthcare space, so we haven't proceeded with that project. That's not to say we can't proceed with high-risk projects. There's another one that we had red flagged, but it's to do with the use case, and the company are putting appropriate checks and balances and guardrails around the application of that technology. Does that answer your question, or do you want to expand a little bit on where you're coming from on that?
Well, just really as a side issue of that is, I'm going back to public sector or within departmental officials, really, aware that certain information can be put up on Copilot, for example, that is confidential. That could be sought in freedom of information. Is there protection there within that sphere as well?
So Helen, do you want to?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was speaking at a Grade 3 leadership event yesterday, and this very conversation came up. Grade 3 in Department of Finance, who is actually responsible for this, made it very clear that there is, if you like, a barrier around all of Copilot for the civil service. It's protected from any other versions of Copilot that you might see out and about, which I think is incredibly important, because even people getting M365, they need to understand the difference of using the M365 version versus the chat version. So that was the assurances that the very discussion came up on that yesterday. There was also a discussion around how do we ensure that we are still cyber secure in all of this whenever we're bringing in these tools. So actually discussions with Department for Economy and also TEO, we are really seeing the opportunities. We are all docked into each other anyway, but forming that technology committee or technology grouping that we essentially bring cyber into the conversation as well, to make sure that we are aligned and we are future ready for what's required. So again, very good points. They are on the table, people are discussing them. I think where we're starting off in some of the AI projects that are ongoing across the civil service, they're not at that cross-pollination of data stage yet. But if it were to come down the track, you're right, we need to have the checks and balances there.
If I just might close that off, in terms of our assessments, every project we engage with is assessed through the same lens: safety, accountability and human oversight. That means clear responsibility, impact assessments before deployment and safeguards against misuse and repurposing. That's baked into our tool to make these assessments as simple as possible for the companies. As I say, we're going to be launching that on our Responsible AI Hub in the coming weeks, and we're already speaking with Helen and other public officials around how they might adopt those tools as well. Implementing AI solutions in the public sector is hugely different to implementing them in tech startups or in the private sector. There's a lot of vulnerable, people's information, PII, political discussions, policy advice, that needs to be appropriately, secured and ring-fenced, and I guess, our experience in that area is helping Helen and the team across the public sector to kind of put in place those safeguards.
And just to follow up on that, one of the things we did listen to was in the public sector and in industry, this major concern that they have around ethical and responsible AI. And in doing that, we've launched a new MSc, which is part of the funded skills by the department and AICC, where we're looking at taking people through steps and case studies about how do they take projects forward in the word industry, make sure they're safe ethically and responsibly, but also make them aware of all the different jurisdictions' legal requirements that they have as well. So that MSc is due to start on Monday the 22nd of this month, and already a full course sitting waiting to go.
I just add one further thing. So AI does not remove existing data security and privacy policies. Those still need to be adhered to. In terms of global standards, ISO standards are specific to AI, and cybersecurity for AI standards also exist. So in terms of our guidance to companies, we take account of those. AI shouldn't, remove, the requirement on companies, public sector organisations to adhere to those existing data security things like GDPR. They shouldn't be kind of doing away with those. They still have to adhere to those standards and policies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. Sinead.
Thank you very much. It's been a great morning listening to us. It does my heart good, actually. Really, really positive engagement with you. And I just think that it is exciting. There is so much opportunity here, particularly within the public sector, that transformational piece that we have been talking about for quite some time. And just, sometimes it feels like lead, the pace of change within public sector, but this is a game changer for the positive, obviously. We have to ensure that it's ethically and responsible, and we have to think of the security around it. It's essentially people's data as well. It's individuals' data. But you said there, Helen, at the outset about trying to get the shift of the data, the content manager to place everything in an accessible place in order for us
accessible but secure.
Yes, accessible but secure. In order for it to inform, we would have data that would be live data, real data, that would inform policy and decision making. Because sometimes the decision making process itself is really, really slow. So is that in trail at the minute? Is there a real move to change the system to become accessible? And have you identified any kind of AI, as I said in one of the pages, like a growth zone or something that is like, let's use this as our key piece, it's ready to move, or there's a greater issue, say for example in healthcare transformation, which is a real big issue for us at the minute. Are you using any of the platforms as a kind of pilot? Let's see how we do this and how this might work.
Okay, so there's a lot there. Okay, so as a separate side pot, the AI growth zones were a thing, obviously, that's come from UK Gov. Northern Ireland is at the table on that. Department for Economy have convened stakeholder engagement on that as to what we need to be part of the table for AI growth zones. So that is in train. On your other questions on what is actually happening with the data, I presented to all the ministers on the 15th of May about this, and this is very much in train. So it is. There has been commitment. There is a team in Department of Finance who are looking at this and have scoped out what this would take. Now, this is about long-term future planning, but in doing this, it is my understanding that this would put us nearly at a first, because the size of our country at 1.9 million people, and for all departments to be thinking about doing this at the same time. Now, we'll not underestimate the challenge. We've over 100 million pieces of data, and obviously duplicates would need to be dealt with, and you'll need to archive and prony and all the rest of it. But not all AI is going to use public, actually people data, if you like. For example, there's a lot of opportunities, and I think it's almost like we're taking the whole country on a journey. We're not taking our young kids on a journey, we're taking the whole country on a journey. And so, if we look at DAERA are quite well advanced in some of the things that they're doing. So they've got obviously the AI enhanced inspection at the ports, so that's not necessarily dealing with, public data. It's not putting any of our citizens at risk by doing that project per se. They're also doing remote sensing on land parcels and things like that, which is really good, really efficient and things like that. And they're doing machine learning on drainage channel identification. That's only an example of one department that's looked at some of the things it can use this for. There are opportunities across other departments. I hear you on the health. Now, the health is a big one. What I would say is that the Minister for Health, Mike Farrer, has convened an innovation roundtable to look at, we've had 2 meetings on this so far, to really look at some of the bespoke opportunities that there are. There's also some really exciting opportunities to try to look at how do we use this in a way that doesn't compromise any of the citizens or their data, but helps to drive some of the efficiencies. So I think what we're going to go down the line of is eventually where are all the opportunities in a sandbox idea to basically kind of say, okay, how can we do this to not get rid of anybody's jobs, but to help the duplication, to help faster, more critical thinking, to give your mind more time to read a document and critically analyse it rather than actually having to put the whole document together. It's just a different way of looking at it. Hopefully that's answered all your questions.
Yeah, it's amazing potential, and the reason I probably said within the health field as well, I'm very conscious from a regional balance perspective, that we have city deals in the workings at the minute, and there's quite a lot of like personalised medicine projects, in some of the city deals, and I'm just wondering, is that something that that sharing of data and the movement of data could be really transformational in that kind of
completely agree
area that would really help drive.
What I would say is that one of the transformation projects that's currently being funded is really to deal with primary care and it across all of the GPs. So when you go in and you need more than just your GP, you need your physio or you need whatever, you get it all there in the one place. Now, I think that is really good and that can transform. Again, I think we need to measure then what's the outcomes of that. So what's the so what around that? So how many patients are not then going to secondary care, etc., etc. So I think sharing of data is critical. I think the personalised medicine one is a great one. Who do we treat, when and where, etc. And I know this is something that Department of Health are taking really seriously at the moment. I've been in discussions with the Permanent Secretary about this, and I think they're really trying to focus in on trying to address our waiting lists. You know, for example, it's not every waiting list that will be able to be dropped down, but where are the ones that we can really have the most impact in the shortest space of time, with the goal of overall looking at waiting lists.
I suppose for a politician's perspective, I mean, we spend a lot of our time trying to do research and trying to get data and trying to get information in order to guide policy. So, and make sure that, you know, the policy that we are promoting is actually going to be effective and have the right outcome for our citizens. So, for me, that's is something that, you know, will have a really future impact. And you know, the issues that we struggle with in Northern Ireland is around productivity, and that, you know, we waste a lot of time duplicating a lot of work as well, and that could have a transformative influence in all our work. And my office, for example, I use AI for my minutes and my meetings every Thursday.
Yeah.
And it's like that. So
Yeah.
we all know immediately the minute we finish what we have to do.
And then that enables you to go on to the next
then,
task.
exactly.
You know, I think it's funny you mentioned that. I would say the number one thing that I've picked up across the senior management teams in the departments is access to real-time data. Yeah. And actually, when it comes to R&D, we don't currently accurately measure our R&D as a country as a whole. So we've taken on board, it was in the document I sent you, a real-time data framework where we're measuring R&D, and also we're working with the government departments to actually have an R&D budget line. Rather than putting your R&D into CapEx, you need to put it into your budget line. The reason why is because we're judged as a whole economy as to what our R&D is. But you know that more than me.
And just on the aspect of R&D as well, I mean, we lost R&D through leaving the European Union and that. And I know, well, from InvestNI's perspective, that was a real body blow, because, you know, it has had an impact. Is there enough money in the system to make us competitive with other regions in relation to that investment in R&D? And
yes.
If not, can we share resources, for example, maybe the Shared Island Fund, or in that all-island context of driving investment?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So UK Gov highly committed to R&D. We don't draw down our share of that, so that's something that we're really looking on. And in fact, UKRI are coming over in a couple of weeks' time for that very thing, and we've engaged with a number of executives around that. Shared Island funding, absolutely. So you'll be aware Aoife McLeisite is the new CSA, and she's in DeFeris, and we have a monthly call, and those are the very things that we're talking about. How can we support each other, again, with the Department of Finance helping us? So Gillian, who ran point on the regional city deals, is actually keen to run point on Shared Island Fund as well. So how can we start to use that Shared Island Fund for some of the things that we don't have? I'm using an example from a field that I know, cell therapies. You know, how do we make sure, so there's only 2 available cell therapies in Dublin, or otherwise you have to go over to England, but there's 6 marketed cell therapies that you can have. So how do we create a Dublin, Galway, regional, you know, up here as well? How do we do this as a co-creation? And that's something that, you know, we're actively looking at in that respect. I think European funding, we are back in European funding, so that is absolutely fantastic to see. And one of the advantages of that is that we can tap into all of our European networks, and that's also a discrete advantage of Northern Ireland as well, is being able to access that funding. Are we doing
universities?
Yeah, at the universities, yes. Are we able to do this as joined up as we could? We can always do better, but we're hopefully we've demonstrated, if nothing else, that we are connected and we are working together across the board on this. And as I like to say, we're working for NI PLC as a whole, basically, to try to bring in the most that we can.
Are you looking at Estonia and other places that are small like
yes,
us?
I am looking at Estonia. I haven't managed to get out there, but what I would say is that you're right. So when you look at how Estonia have applied R&D, if you look at how Estonia have applied their AI, I actually think we've more of the building blocks in place here to do this, and we have the will of the government to do this. And that's not something that we should take lightly, because I think if we can do this as a collective, that's tremendous.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all the panel as well. Thank you.
Patrick?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the presenters. It's been a really interesting presentation, and there's been so many, I suppose, a great diversity of showcasing the use of AI there. What I'm really keen to understand, that just builds on what Philip was asking earlier, is around education and the role of education in this. I worked as a primary school teacher before I took on this role, and a lot of people were, I suppose, quite surprised to learn that even at the lower end of primary school now, coding is a very common thing that you would do with primary school age, and particularly in the secondary school as well. So there's obviously that experience, and young people are quite often ahead of the trends that the rest of us are trying to catch up on. So what I'm keen to kind of learn and hear from your experience of is, within classrooms and within education, what role do you think, firstly, there is for that AI piece to be, as Philip said, part of the curriculum, more integrated? But also, I'm conscious that we don't want to place an additional burden on teachers who are already very stretched. So do you think there's a role for private sector there, for leaders to come in from industry and actually to kind of use that as an innovation space as well?
I'll answer briefly, and then if in my previous role as Chief Executive of Software A&I, we had a very active mentoring program with software engineers and people in the tech industry called Tech Teach, where they would have, and they were kind of clustered regionally, where it was available for secondary school teachers in digital and ICT to join kind of a regular monthly call to discuss, opportunities, to discuss what the tech industry is doing, how they might incorporate some of that into their lesson plans, and that was done in a fairly engaging and light touch way. In terms of the pedagogy, though, I'd probably hand over to Michaela in terms of your views.
So there has been some similar initiatives, and it's currently been run by the Belfast Met, where we go out to secondary schools and primary schools, and local universities will have their own initiatives. But I agree, I think the biggest gap that we have at the minute is this whole literacy. How do we get the teachers and the students using the literacy that we need that is in association with the industry? Because if the industry is coming in with the literacy and the students and the teachers don't have it, there's a piece there for us to help. And I think that can come through the work with Helen in the public services. We're already working with the Education Authority. They're very keen to adopt AI. We're looking at PhDs with them. They're looking to have soft literacy training for all of their staff as one of the biggest employers in Northern Ireland. So I think there's lots that we can do. The other thing that I think we need to agree under Helen's AI strategy is definitely an educational framework under AI. There are lots of nice ones out there at the minute. The Digital Education Council have just launched a fantastic one in early part of this year, and I think we need to start embedding frameworks like that in our education so that teachers are not overwhelmed by the use of AI, and there's that comfortable language about when the students can use the AI. Is it AI assisted learning? Is it AI embedded learning? Or is there no AI to be used? All of that needs to be addressed to take that pressure off the teachers and allow them to stay creative in their industry. So there's a few pieces there that we are starting to feed forward and try and get into those systems and assist with that.
Patrick has...
There's one, just on the example of what the private sector can do. So we're working with an SME at the moment on one of their proof of concept, and that's an education, an AI assistant for teaching mathematics, sort of to augment that learning. So it's not on the teacher to go through it. It provides feedback on a very sort of guardrail way. So that's certainly an opportunity that person has recognised. I think they're an ex-teacher as well, and they've pivoted into this, I guess, tech field and using that tech for good and tech for learning.
I think the other thing as well is we have, Northern Ireland has recently joined and set up a new Academy of Mathematical Sciences, and we have actually had quite a few meetings about this, and they are being linked in now with the Department for Education as well, because the role that mathematics plays in all of this is absolutely huge. So there's quite a lot happening in this space, but Michaela's right, we need to make sure that we've got that correct piece in the strategy that enables that skills and training and development in that particular sector.
Yeah, I think, it's great to hear those initiatives and what's going on. I think my kind of worry would be that because obviously there's such a strong STEM focus and STEM agenda, and obviously that's really necessary and industry focused and so on. But my worry would be that people get kind of see it as a specialism then, and see it as something that if they're not strong in those areas, they nearly cut themselves off from, and they have no access to, and so on. But I actually think AI offers the chance to kind of recalibrate that whole conversation and to look at how it benefits literacy and languages and a broader array of things. So really find that really interesting. Obviously, it's an emerging field, so it's going to change consistently. But one of the conversations I would be really focused on is how it can be embedded across the curriculum. Because I think sometimes it's both from a teaching point of view, and I suppose I would consider myself quite good with maths and science and so on, but it can be nerve-wracking for teachers and for educators if they don't feel that kind of comfortable in that zone, but also for learners and for young people as well. So it's just something I suppose there's a broader conversation around.
And that's why I've very much been advocating for the STEAM agenda. Not just STEM, it's about STEAM. If you want to have proper integration, this is how you do it.
And Helen, just to add to that, you're very right. We've been now holding the Gen AI Educational Conference in Northern Ireland for 3 years. We're really leading in that area. So that's predominantly focused at educators from across the UK, the north and south of Ireland, coming along with what practices they've tried out, what's working, what's not working. And what's really nice, we've started to have a lot of student co-creation in that conference as well. So there's a lot of learnings from those 3 years that we can pick up and see what is worth rolling out and what's not.
No, really appreciate your comments, and that's I hope we kind of can continue this conversation, because I'm sure myself and others will have a lot more questions. So thanks very much.
Colleagues, thank you very much for that. I think that was a very useful discussion, and no doubt we'll be in regular contact with you. Can I thank you on behalf of the committee for the vital work that you're doing for the Northern Ireland economy, and we look forward to our continued engagement with you. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, do you want to go with yours and then I'll Okay, colleagues, just to agree some follow-up actions. Peter?
So members, is the committee content to, write to the department just asking about the innovation projects that is identify the science champion, the AI champion, and also what the department's doing about AI growth zones? This is something that the committee wrote about actually to the UK government before summer recess.
And the only other one I had, members, was in relation to the Minister's ongoing work with DCIT to ensure that Northern Ireland continues to get its fair share of R&D funding.
Make sure we get that money, don't we?
Yeah. Anything else, colleagues? Is that great? Okay, thank you all very much indeed. We'll then move to the next item.
Which is Nathan.
Yep.
Here he is.
Right on time, Nathan, as always. How are you, sir? Thank you very much indeed, and apologies on behalf of the committee for keeping you waiting, Nathan, but we're delighted that you've been able to join us to give us some overview of social enterprises in Northern Ireland and the strategy produced by the Minister. So thank you very much for coming along, and I'll hand over to you, sir.
Good morning, committee. Committee recall I provided a briefing paper on social enterprises which looked at international best practice in a number of countries. Following that meeting, the committee requested follow-up information on a number of points raised at the previous meeting. Based on the points raised, the committee prepared 2 papers for the committee's consideration today. The first looks at the current state of play of social enterprises in Northern Ireland, the European Union and Republic of Ireland, and the second looks at social enterprises from the lens of female participation and leadership. So first, I'll give the committee an overview of the paper looking at the current state of play of social enterprises in Northern Ireland, EU and ROI. The first section of the paper provides the committee with some definitions of social enterprise. I'm not going to go into that because we've covered that in the previous paper. So moving on to section 2. Section 2 to 5 of this paper considers social enterprises in the context of Northern Ireland. First, the role of the executive in supporting social enterprises considered. Firstly, in that, the Department for Economy. I would highlight to the committee the Department has responsibility for social economy policy on behalf of the Northern Ireland Executive. However, it is the local councils who have responsibility for social enterprise after it was transferred to them in 2015 as part of the review of public administration. As part of the support for social economy policy, DFE supports the development and implementation of the Social Enterprise Work Programme. The current programme covers the period of 2024 to 27. Within the executive departments, there's the Social Enterprise Policy Group. It's a cross-departmental group with the aim to coordinate departmental policies on social enterprise and share best practice and success. The terms of reference, which are detailed in the paper, also give the group responsibility to develop a social enterprise definition for Northern Ireland. DFE also published the Social Enterprise Action Plan in December 2024. The plan sets out a 3-year vision for the social enterprise sector. A summary of the action plan can be found at Table 1 in the paper. The department also commissioned research into the sector. The paper highlights a report called Barriers to Growth Research, looking at the social enterprise sector in Northern Ireland. The key findings of this report can be found at Table 2 in the paper. Then the paper then considers the role DOF can play, in particular the use of public procurement notes, specifically PPN 0221, which considers social and other specific services. The note details that such service providers or qualifying organisations in which the note applies include social enterprises they are specifically named within that policy note. Section 3 of the paper provides analysis of the recently published, and that was the 30th of July, just gone, 2025 Northern Ireland Social Enterprise Sector Report, which set out to provide an up-to-date and in-depth picture of the sector. The headline figures reported in the report says there are in existence at least 1,225 social enterprises in Northern Ireland, and those enterprises provide to the wider economy in Northern Ireland combined turnover of 932.9 million and are employing at least 17,300 people across the region. The paper then provides some key findings of the report. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this just to further thing, but the areas we looked at in the paper were employment, the trading age of social enterprises, the location of social enterprises in Northern Ireland, the purpose and trading activity of those social enterprises, and their financing. Section 4 then considers other supports for social enterprises in Northern Ireland. The first gives an overview of social enterprise NI. I'm sure the committee is aware. I think they appeared before the committee before. We also highlight in the paper the social enterprise directory. The access to non-members requires organisations to become social value partners. That's something we highlight within the report, so it is not publicly accessible to everyone, that directory. The paper then details information provided on the NI Business Info website. There's a list of those financial schemes in which social enterprises can benefit, provided in the paper. And then thirdly, the paper looked at Intertrade Ireland and programs which social enterprises can avail of, maybe not exclusively, but they can. But if they meet the eligibility criteria, they can. However, I did point to the Go to Tender workshop series, in which there was a specific workshop dedicated to social enterprises. I think that was last year at some point. Section 5 of the paper then considers social enterprise from a local council perspective. Ray's contacted each council. You'll have a detail of what was requested from each in the paper. A number of recurring themes and observations from the responses. I'll just note a few things that came up again and again within those responses. So within some councils, there is the ambition to create their own social enterprise directories so that they know who the enterprises are within their own areas. In terms of rural urban divide, councils know that this may be dependent on the characteristics of the councils themselves, as in some councils are more rural than others. However, from the data available, councils report that social enterprises were located more in larger settlements than in more rural areas. A number of councils are running or have run in the past social enterprise specific schemes, and also the one issue that came up, I suppose, as a problem for them was identification of social enterprises in their area. It was acknowledged as being difficult due to their little legal definition specifically for social enterprise. Councils who are aware of social enterprises in their district, usually the enterprises have come to them in terms of support, so they're able to identify them that way. There's also, they've raised the point in some correspondence that they may have more social enterprises operating in their district, but the enterprises themselves aren't actually aware that's what the category they fall into. So it's just awareness both at a council's perspective and from certain firm or businesses themselves that they maybe are characterised in this method. Another common response from the councils was that social enterprises are supported through the Go Succeed programme. Section 5.2 details this. The Go Succeed programme was launched in 2023. Belfast City Council is the project management officer for delivery across Northern Ireland, so all other councils feed into that. So Table 5 provides data on the number of social enterprises that has been supported. That information was supplied by Belfast City Council. Section 6 of the paper looks at EU policy. That was another issue that was raised at the previous meeting. I would note that EU discussion around social enterprises is included in the wider discussion around the social economy, the wider EU social economy. The paper details a number of action plans and investigations carried out at EU institution level. There was a 2017 feasibility study on a European statute for social and solidarity-based enterprises, the 2021 action plan for social economy, and 2023 recommendations on developing social economy framework conditions. Just highlighting the action plan because that was something that we had discussed previously. Key actions that the council set out are because of recommendation on developing social economy framework, a new EU social economy gateway to provide a clear entry point for social economy stakeholders, and a new European competence centre for social innovation. Further detail of that the plan can be found in Appendix 2 of the paper. I also detailed a number of EU funding initiatives that support social enterprises. They have been categorised as either repayable finance or grants. It was also noted that, as with other programmes that we've discussed within the paper, social enterprises are not excluded from other wider EU programmes as long as they meet the eligibility criteria on which those programmes are based. And then Section 7 was specifically looking at the Republic of Ireland. Noted that there was no specific social enterprise legislation, but the Republic does have a national action plan, or national social enterprise policy for Ireland. The first was in 2019, and the current one was published in 2024. In addition, the Irish Government commissioned in 2022 a social enterprise in Ireland baseline data collection. This gave a snapshot of the sector in that year. Table 6 of the paper details the findings. And finally, then within this paper, we looked at the paper considers some of the representative groups in the Republic. So in particular, Social Enterprise Republic of Ireland and the Irish Social Enterprise Network. That was the first paper, and as you read, there's two. So do you want to take questions on that now, or we'll just go through into the female participation?
Keep going if you're happy enough.
So again, Section 1 is very similar, a definition piece of social enterprises and some specifics on women participation in the labour market and leadership positions. Section 2 of the second paper considers analysis that has been carried out internationally, specifically by the World Economic Forum and the British Council. In 2024, the World Economic Forum carried out a review of global data. However, this was not specifically focused on women, but they did note several specific gender-related findings. 1 in 2 social enterprises worldwide are led by women, compared to 1 in 5 of conventional enterprises. But they do caveat that those figures do vary significantly across countries that they analysed. More specifically, the British Council in 2017 carried out an analysis of the role of social enterprises in supporting women. The countries they selected were Brazil, India, Pakistan, and the United States. Table 1 provides an overview of the findings of this, but I would highlight to the committee that there were recommendations within that report that were for governments in general. As you know, those countries are varying economic and social status, but the points that the recommendations were: governments should bear in mind that any policies to support women in work will actively support the social enterprise sector, which has disproportionately high female workforce. Government should prioritise eliminating gender imbalance through caring responsibilities through legislation and support, and they find that social enterprises may be a way to achieve this. And finally, governments and social enterprises should work in partnership to increase the use of social entrepreneurship education in schools. As I say, I think perhaps the first recommendation is one to consider there, that, and again as shown by some of the other in the previous report, that when you engage programs where they may not be specific for social enterprises can benefit, and if they are directed at women, if women have a higher percentage of leadership or workforce, they may be more inclined to apply and have a better percentage of chance of being successful in those programs. Section 3 is an analysis carried out at a European level. This was based on 2022 survey results, but the actual women in social enterprise observations were published in 2025. Table 2 of the paper provides an overview of the findings of their support. Section 4 provides more detailed analysis at a UK level, including Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Each of these are based on the most recent surveys carried out on the social enterprises in each region. So the UK State of Social Enterprise Survey just highlights some of the key findings there. 59% of social enterprise leadership teams are at least half female, and 88% of social enterprise leadership teams include at least one woman. 58% report at least half their workforce are women, with 15% reporting that their entire workforce are comprised of women. And on average, female-led social enterprises pay more tax than those led by men. As I say, more analysis needs to be done there. It would suggest more profitable, but there may be other factors there, but that's something just that they noted in the paper. Similarly, analysis from the previously mentioned 2025 Northern Ireland sector report, there were, while entire sector report, there were some specific gender points found. 44% of social enterprises in Northern Ireland are female-led. 82% of those surveyed women were making up at least half their employees, with a fifth stating their entire workforce were women, so slightly higher than the UK average. And social enterprises with a higher proportion of female staff in Northern Ireland are more likely to be located in areas of high deprivation. The Republic, again, the figures you'll see within the paper are based on the baseline data collection report from 2022. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the areas considered here were gender representation in the workforce, volunteers, and board membership. Then we moved on to the Shared Island Enterprise Scheme. This, the committee recall, that was something that was mentioned just at the end of the committee in the last meeting, so I've done a bit of a deep dive into that. I think just for quickness, the scheme is open to all businesses. Social enterprises can apply for them, but there is nothing really specifically focused within what the Shared Enterprise Scheme at the minute is doing to support social enterprises specifically. But I have been in contact with Intertrade, and they have told me that as long as the eligibility criteria is met for the different programs, social enterprises and apply. And looking at some enterprises that have worked already on the program, some of them would meet the criteria of a social enterprise. Apologies, there's a lot there, but
no, it's really useful, Nathan. Thank you so much for that. In relation to the first paper, I suppose the most concerning thing for me was the disparity in terms of councils across Northern Ireland. So some councils don't even hold basic information about social enterprises that operate in their constituencies. Other councils are much better at doing that. And then the disparity in terms of the support and promotion, particularly within procurement, that councils are doing. They're a huge spender, and not to have a framework to support social enterprises, and that I think is disappointing. So I think there's a piece of work that we as a committee should try and encourage the department to give some form of uniformity to the approach that local government is taking. But there's a lot of stuff here that we'll want to take away. Do any members want to make any comment, David?
Just to thank for this really useful piece of work. Just to shout out Stuart Dixon and my colleagues bringing through a private members bill to try and we were the only area in these islands to not have a bit of legislation on the value, social value, bring that through. And I remember the all-party group on social economy, and it is a really good space as well. So thank you. Some brilliant examples in my own area of this, Matlock to other Live Life or whatever. There's loads of examples of how this works really well when it's promoted. So this is useful to allow. So thank you.
Anybody, any other comments on me at this stage? If not, can I, on behalf of the committee, thank you, Nathan, very much for that. And no doubt we'll be back to you with further discussion. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So members who can be content to write to the department, just asking them what steps they're going to take to ensure uniformity of approach across the district councils in respect of gathering the data and providing the support.
Members content with that?
Agreed.
Yep. Okay, we'll move to correspondence then at item 8. Members, item 2, members are asked to consider departmental correspondence in relation to the Minister electing not to reappoint the Chair of the Northern Regional College. Are members content to note? Okay. Item 3, the Minister advises that the Law Society comments on the Insolvency Amendment Bill had raised concerns about the removal of provisions that require a statement of affairs from a bankrupt in all cases and the use of preliminary examination questionnaire. The Minister advises that her preliminary view is that she is content with the bill as drafted. Is the committee content, whenever we're doing our oral evidence session on this bill, that we will seek the views of the Association of Insolvency Practitioners? Okay.
And the Law Society?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Item 4, members are asked to note a departmental response in relation to the Insolvency Amendment Bill. Members content to note? Thank you. Item 5, members are asked to note departmental correspondence in respect of statistical user engagement exercise. Member content to note? Thank you. Item 6, members have received correspondence from the Allied Customs Services in respect of the Customs Duty Waiver Scheme, which is part of the Windsor Framework, forwarded to us by the Windsor Framework Democratic Scrutiny Committee. The members' content we share with the Chief Secretary to the Treasury to ask for their views on the issues raised. Content? Thank you. Item 7, members are asked to note a call for evidence from the House of Lords International Agreements Committee in respect of the UK-India Free Trade Agreement. Members content to note? Thank you. Again, item 8 for noting is the most recent publication from Pivotal on the Programme for Government. Content to note?
Can I just make a comment on it?
Of course.
I think it's really important we welcome data and information and analysis from externals to here. I didn't think it was very helpful for the Deputy First Minister to call that information nonsense, because I engage quite often with those reports in a meaningful and positive way, and I think they're very instructive and reflective of what work that we do here, and they shouldn't be dismissed in any form or fashion. So I'm just putting that on the record.
I'm going to take my chairman hat off for a second here and just respond to those comments. So listen, I think it's important that we do receive information from external organisations. Those who are involved in Pivotal have much more experience in government in terms of high roles they held in the civil service and other places. And I'll happily compare our record of delivery with theirs when they were in office. So if we just move then to item 9, members, which is asking for consideration to be given to an invitation on tourism in a shifting world. Are members content to respond that owing to plenary business, members may be unlikely to attend? Okay. Item 10, members are asked to note a restricted copy of correspondence from a concerned individual to power NI in respect of price increases. Members content to note? Thank you. Item 11, then we turn to tabled items. Members, hopefully everyone has a copy. So this is an invitation to an energy summit event on the 24th of September at the ICC Belfast. Are members content to note and if they wish to attend? Okay. Any issues with correspondence at this stage, members?
Nope. I just asked members, we'd sent some correspondence on EU matters to the Secretary of State, the Office of the Internal Market, the FSB, etc. Is the committee content for me to share these with the Windsor Framework Democratic Scrutiny Committee?
I can't wait to read them again.
It's double dig.
Yeah, exactly. Are members content?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Okay, we then move to Forward Work Programme. Peter.
So, Chair, is the committee content to defer our visit to Belfast Stories until Ms Nicholl returns? Because I think it was her idea that we go, if that's okay. The other thing is I'm hoping to get the Law Society to come to us on the 15th of October. So that would be like maybe our first evidence session. Additionally, Lord Murphy has indicated that he will likely attend on the 5th of November. Now I'm asking him to please attend in person, but I think he might want to do it on Zoom. So this will be about his report on the Windsor Framework. And that will probably hopefully align with the Road Haulage Association, so we could do all of that on the one day if members are content. So we've also, members, just a reminder, 12:30, we have an informal lunch with the House of Lords International Agreements Committee. Also, 1st of October, are you still, members, all on to go to the utility regulator? We'll be starting early at 9:30 for our usual meeting here. The department have provided me with some stuff on spending review, and we'll be talking a wee bit about renewable energy, and then we would nip down the road to Queen Street, so you'd park at Castle Court, nip across to utility regulator headquarters. They'll do us lunch, they'll want to talk to us, and then we'll be done by about 2 o'clock, and so you can get back for TEO as that membership is apparently increasing.
Oh, exactly.
So are we still on for that, members? Because if we're not, it'd be better.
wrong?
I know.
Are members content that we continue?
Okay, thanks, Chair.
And then if we just issue a wee list of other agreed external, because don't we have a Kilkeel visit at some stage?
We do.
Right?
Kilkeel is the 8th of October.
Okay. And then after that, we'll perhaps focus on trying to get through some legislation based on the building here. Members content with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask just as well about the Good Jobs Bill? Have we any idea where we are with that? Because I'm just really conscious of kind of how large that could possibly be, and it would nearly swamp your forward work programme in a way. So have you any?
So, Chairperson, the Chair asked a question about this over the summer, and the Minister indicated that they anticipated the bill would be introduced in January. Honestly, I'd be very surprised. It's just because it's a huge bill. It's a really big undertaking. Some members would have may very well welcome it, and others may not so much. But whatever you think about it, it is a big undertaking. There are quite a lot of things happening in Westminster which they may or may not wish to take account of. So I'd be surprised if we see it in January. I think I saw something else from the department which seemed to indicate that it'll be in the early part of 2026. Either way, my expectation would be is that we would get a couple of other bills done before we actually launch the call for evidence, which my guess would be that call for evidence would be launched maybe at Easter. And then we'd be actually taking the evidence, because we'd have to give everybody a lot of time. So we'd end up actually doing the committee stage probably in the autumn this time next year, I'd have thought. So it makes the end of the mandate quite exciting in terms of the credit union bill.
What word you would use?
Yes, and indeed the members' bill, because I think the private members' bill it hasn't even been drafted yet. So, nor has it been selected by the Speaker yet.
It has to be selected first.
Yeah, and then drafted. So I don't think we would, with the best will in the world, you'll just about see that introduced before summer recess, I would have thought. So that, as the Chair has indicated, if we better, wherever we're going to go, we better go there, because we won't be able to, because we'll have lots of legislation to do between now and the end of the mandate, between about Halloween and the end of the mandate. So hope that answers your question.
Can I have a question, and I have a bee in my bonnet about this, but it's the sectoral action plans. Like, they were published almost 18 months ago, and they're for 7 key industries to grow our economy. I really think we need to scrutinise. We've had a written briefing, but I would really like the officials to come in. Could we ask again?
Yes, Chair. Yes, so we're seeking an update on the sectoral action plans. All of them.
And a request for a
briefing. Yeah, a brief. If that is agreed, Chairperson.
Great, colleagues. Okay. Anyone, anything else? Okay.
Laura agrees too.
I was like,
I'm going to
scrutinise.
open then to any other business members of any at this stage. If not, then the committee will meet in formal session again on the 24th of September at 10 a.m. here in Parliament Buildings, and that the Economy Committee will now adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues.